Guys, just wanted to show you how I created my sound enclosure for my small little open build CNC machine. I have my machine in my laundry room, and I've been avoiding using it because, well, it makes lots of dust and noise, and so it's been sitting around for a while, and I really wanted to use it, so I figured, okay, I gotta make something that will keep it quiet and hopefully keep the dust down, because I can't have a lot of dust in my laundry room, in my basement, and my daughter's bedroom's directly overhead, so I can't keep her awake or have her complain about it. So I decided, okay, I'm going to make something that will deal with this. So I did a lot of digging around and watching videos and reading up on sound insulation and how to do it, and in the end I had to compromise a little bit because of cost, and I tried to keep the cost as low as it could get away with. From what I've read and seen, what you really need to soundproof is mass, so that means weight, and I ended up using 3/4 inch MDF panels and 2x4 lumber and 1/2 inch drywall pieces. And I'll show you, this is what you see now is basically the final design that I ended up using. It's just a cube. Now what I ended up doing is, since my laundry room is quite small, I ended up splitting the doors, so I had 2 access doors. I'll just turn one of them off for now. Whoops, that's the left door. So I ended up splitting the doors so that we could still walk through the laundry room and get access to the washer and dryer. And so how this ended up being built was, since I, with all this mass, like, I wouldn't be able to carry this thing downstairs into my laundry room by myself, so I had to make it modular, where each of the segments was its own piece, and I could assemble it in the laundry room itself. So I ended up making these pieces at my work, and just they had a work table I could use, and so I ended up getting the MDF cut at Home Depot. I don't have a table saw or anything like that to cut the sheets down, so Home Depot thankfully cut these for me. I do have a miter saw, so I was able to cut the 2x4s, and the basic construction was 3/4 inch MDF for the panels, 2x4s to frame, and it was all based on sizing of a 2x2 foot piece of 1/2 inch drywall. Now the drywall I ended up using 3 layers of drywall. So 3 layers of 1/2 inch drywall, and between them I used something called green glue, which is an acoustic adhesive, which helps dampen vibrations from one layer to the next. Apparently, to help insulate and sound, you're trying to avoid using mechanical fasteners. You're trying to avoid using screws between different layers, because the screws will help create a hard mechanical connection between the layers, which will let the sound transmit. And by using green glue adhesive, it stays very soft, almost like a gummy worm, or like a soft gummy worm. And by putting that between the layers, between the MDF and the drywall, between the drywall sheets themselves, it adds a little bit of an air gap, and you need a little bit of an air gap between your layers to help isolate everything. And so that's what I ended up doing. I ended up gluing everything as much as possible. So all the 2x4s were glued to the 2x4 frames were made together. I screwed that together, but I glued the MDF to the 2x4s, and then I glued the drywall to the MDF. And then basically each segment was made separately, so there were 6 panels or 7 panels, including the 2 doors. And then I ended up, since I didn't want any mechanical fasteners, I ended up using like a toggle pull latch on all the panels, which you'll see later on, and to squeeze it all together. And in addition, what's not visible here is some of the, I use some rubber insulation, or not insulation, I use some rubber sheeting cut into strips that I lined between all the edges that are touching each other. So along the faces, and let me put that piece back on, that's the right side. So along all the faces here, in between where the door is, I put rubber between like the layers of where the top meets the sides and the back. I put a layer of 1/8 inch rubber, which I found at Home Depot, and in a roll, and I just chopped it up. And then put green glue down to hold it. Now, green glue is not the best when it comes to adhering plastics or rubbers. It doesn't really grab that well, but it worked well enough. And in some places I had to add a few little tack nails just to hold it in place. Yeah, so basically that's it. For the windows, I added some 1/4 inch acrylic pieces, front and back, and yeah, I mean, this thing is quite heavy. Even individual panels, like each one of these sides, feels like it probably weighs 50 pounds. So like this whole box is, you know, probably in the 300-pound range, maybe a bit more. And it's quite large, and you'll see I have a few quick little videos of me putting it together. Not very comprehensive, just I took a video here and there just so you can see the pieces come together. And then I'll show how the sound, how well it works, and you know, the end results are pretty good for my first sound box. Okay, so here we go. Some of the materials I'm going to be using to build my sound enclosure for my CNC machine. I got 1/2 inch drywall, 2x4 lumber, some green glue, rubber padding, some acrylic sheets. At least I think it's acrylic. It could be polycarbonate, can't remember, it's old stuff. Should be fun. So these are the pieces for one of the side walls. I've got these pre-cut on my miter saw, and I pre-drilled them so that they would accept these 2.5 inch pocket hole screws. So they're pre-drilled pretty deep. There's only probably 1 inch left of material on the inside. And then I'm just going to make the frame. So here I've clamped one of the corners down. I clamped this edge down so it's nice and flush. I made sure my cuts were nice and square. I also added a clamp at the end just to prevent it from moving as I drill it. In order to make sure I don't overdrive these screws, I added some tape just as a marker, just so when I put it in, I don't go too far, so I know kind of at what point I'm supposed to be stopping. So this is one of the frames completed. Just the inner frame at least, and just got 2 more to go, and then I can start gluing things on. So here are all the frames for all the sides. I've got a double door, so there's a total of 7 frames that I'm making. 4 and 7. Okay. Alright, so I have some of this green glue noise proofing compound I got from Home Depot. It's supposed to be an adhesive. I'm hoping that when I put it between the frame and the 3/4 inch MDF I'm using, it will hold strong enough and I won't have to use any additional fasteners to keep it all together. I guess we'll see how that turns out. Apparently the reason why you're supposed to go for this stuff instead of like regular adhesive or other fasteners is because this stays flexible when it dries, whereas like a PL or something else becomes very brittle and very hard. And what you're trying to avoid is using mechanical fasteners between your layers to because mechanical fasteners or hard fasteners between them will transmit the sound from one layer to the next. So you want some kind of flexible buffer between, and also a little bit of an air gap between them to help keep the the noise from transferring through. So here goes, and hopefully the stuff sticks. So here is after the first layer of the green glue has been applied in a pattern here, and it's pretty liquidy actually. But okay, so now I'm going to put the frame on. So here are all the walls. Now I glued the panels together, and I just put the drywall on top just to give it some weight as it sets. And I'll check back in to see how it's doing soon. Give it a day or so. Okay, so I'm back. It's the following day. Now I've unloaded everything. The glue is set for the most part. So luckily it's all holding together. The glue has kind of like a gummy worm consistency. It's very spongy and rubbery. So I'm sure it'll still need a couple more days to cure. But at this point I feel I'm good to load up the drywall with the green glue. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to be putting in 3 layers of 1/2 inch drywall inside to build it up. And hopefully that'll do it. And with some green glue between each layer, of course. So this is after 2 layers of drywall. I'm about to add the 3rd one over. But this is the pattern I'm using for the green glue, a crisscross. The instructions say you're supposed to be able to use 1 tube per 4x8 sheet. It's hard to say how much I'm using at this point, but I'm trying to be fairly conservative with it. So at this point, I'm adding on some rubber strips along edges where the panels will meet. The panels are going to be held together using draw clamps. So I just wanted to have something a little bit pliable between the layers to help seal the air in. Home Depot sell the roll of rubber. Rubber sheeting was not very expensive. 1/8 inch thick. I cut it into strips. And I'm using green glue to keep it all down. Green glue doesn't set or grab that quickly, so I put some tape down to hold it down while it's setting, and then by tomorrow it should be good. So yeah, there you go. Just added the lid. Haven't secured it down yet, but seems to fit good. This little glue separating a little bit on this rubber. Doesn't adhere as well to the rubber as I had hoped. And it does adhere, but I might have to add some nails or something just to keep it on. So this is the noise level of my spindle, running at about 23,000. Not cutting yet, so just a spindle on its own. And next I'm going to close it and see how it sounds. Okay, so now this is the enclosure sealed up. Spindle's still running at full speed. And it's hardly noticeable. Like my talking is much louder than the sound of the spindle running. This is how I've run the electronics for my little CNC machine using the Open Builds black box controller. I have a a VFD, which is a 110 volt, 1.5 kilowatt air-cooled spindle. To run the wires from the outside to the inside, I've cut a hole in the paneling and then used these baffle covers which are on either side, and they run the wires in and back, and there's rubber seals all the way around and a screw to put pressure, and it just squishes the wires and makes a little air seal on both sides. So you can probably see the one on the side as well, how I have it so it's double sealing the wires, and that works really well so far. I was worried about cutting a hole in my sound enclosure and what that would do. I'm gonna have to do something similar for a dust and chip extraction. So far I don't have any in there, so I'll have to do something similar to that when I get a chance.